And at what point was it clear that was the path you were going to take? I hear stories about people who, work for a corporation but want to head out on their own and try and do both at the same time and want to gain enough confidence in the one sphere before they make that jump. What was that like for you? What was that point?
Another good question, because I remember it well. My dad, God rest his soul, he died a year and a half ago. He was very conservative, and rightly so. And he got us through good colleges. We didn't have a lot of money growing up, and he's really the reason why I succeeded in many ways. And so when I told him that I was leaving this job as an executive to start my own firm, he was not real excited. And then I told him I wasn't only leaving to start my own firm, I was going to be taking 4 employees with me, and there were 5 of us were going to start it out, and I was the chief breadwinner. And he was like, "Oh, Pat, you shouldn't do that because you should wait until you're making enough money to be able to afford them." And I remember saying, "But Dad, I'll never make enough money to be able to afford them if I don't hire people that are good at the stuff I'm bad at." And so we jumped out. We made a clean break. It was nerve-wracking. It was difficult, and we had 5 mouths to feed right out of the gate. But we were blessed. We were hungry. We were scrappy, and I think that had we tried to do it part-time, and I think sometimes that makes it much more difficult.
Did you have
sometimes it's the right thing to do, no doubt. But there are also times when, because of self-fulfilling prophecy, that you're never going to put in the time and effort to make it fly.
Did you have a particular client locked in when you made the jump?
Well, oddly enough, so one of the jobs that had hired me, one of the companies that had tried to hire me and offered me a job, we had already committed to start the business, but we went to them and said, "Okay, I can't take this job, but I will work for you as a consultant, and instead of hiring me, you can use my firm." They said yes. And then the firm I was leaving, we talked into making a client, being a client of ours. But what's very interesting, David, is right when we started the business, they reneged on the contract. And so you can imagine we were floored.
Yeah.
We had started the business thinking we had this one client, 2 clients, and one of them, the company I had worked for, decided that they weren't going to honor a signed contract they made with us. Now, we knew that we had grounds to sue them, but the first thing that we didn't want to start our business with a lawsuit, even though we had grounds for that. And we decided to walk away from it and just work really hard to start our firm and not to get caught up in the negativity of that, as hard as it was. And it made us more hungry to go find other clients. So yes, we had some clients when we started, but one backed out after we'd already made the jump. And so it was a trying time, but
you worked through it.
Out fine.
It sounds like because of the attitude.
We just didn't want. Yeah, we just said let's not be negative.
Yeah.
We can choose to be mad about this, but we decided let's just go forward and do what we need to do.
Now, what do you get out of running your own business and employing a group of people versus writing best-selling books? How does each fulfill you or not?
Yes, and it's key that the variety is absolutely critical. This week on Monday, I was with the executive team of a really big company and his whole staff, helping them reorganize about how to be a healthier company. Then I went down and met with the CEO of an $11 billion company, but that was much more of a one-on-one kind of consulting, trying to help him figure out what he ought to be doing. And then I get to do some writing. I get to write some articles. And today I gave a speech over at Berkeley's Business School, and then I get to hang out with my staff, and they come with me to a lot of these things, or we work on things in the office. I love the variety, and if I were just a writer, I think it would be hard. If I were just a speaker, it would drive me crazy. If I were just a consultant, it wouldn't be fulfilling. I love the fact that this is just my personality, that I get to do all these things. And managing my staff and being with the people I work with is my favorite of all of them. Because just being able to come into the office with a team that really cares about each other and really pushes each other and really enjoys the process. Today is actually the 12-year anniversary of us starting the firm.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
I had no idea.
It's so much fun. It's been so much fun.
Huh. Congratulations indeed. When did you start writing?
I started writing just before the firm started, and I finished my book after the firm started. But so I guess it's been 12 years, and the book got published 11 years ago.
Okay.
So I've been an author, I suppose, for 12 years.
Wow. And now, one of the things I know is I recently finished the Five Dysfunctions of a Team, and I liked it. And one of the reasons I liked it was because, in addition to being written well, which is not necessarily typical for business books, it was written as a fable as opposed to what you might typically find in reading business books. What was your inspiration in writing it as a fable versus a strict business book?
When I came up with this model on leadership, and I started to tell people about it, and I had some pro bono clients that I did just on the side before I started working on my own. And when I came up with this idea, and people said, that's a really good model for leadership, somebody said, you really should write a book about this. And I thought, well, if I'm going to write a book, I want to write a book that people will actually finish. There's too many business books I picked up and read the first few chapters and thumbed through it, and I thought, man, if I'm going to write this, I want people to read it. And I had taken a screenwriting class in college, and I really enjoyed screenwriting, and I'd written a few screenplays, and a few Hollywood studios had looked at a few of my scripts. And I decided, I'm going to write a compelling narrative with dialogue and fiction so that when people are learning about this model I've come up with, they're going to actually forget that they're reading a business book. Be so lost in the story that before they know what's going on, they're learning. And so that's what I did. And I had no idea that would be a model I would follow up with or that people would like. But I think it's actually been very helpful because I do believe that most of the people who buy my books read them. Because I try to make it once they start that they don't want to finish until they know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, it worked for me.
Good.
Did you get much pushback from the publishers or the industry? Or?
That's the other interesting thing, David. I wrote the book before I had a publisher or an agent.
Okay.
Usually people do a spec and they go pitch the idea. I was just so passionate about it, I wrote it with the help of my colleagues pushing me. And so it was done. And when we took it to a publisher, and the second publisher we took it to read it and called me in the next day and signed me to a deal.
Really?
But they thought it was good. And I had no idea that would ever happen. So it was pretty fluky. And I think the thing they liked about it is, in addition to the fact that I write fiction, I write pretty realistic fiction. I tried to write like the way people talk. And sometimes business fiction can be a little juvenile or a little allegorical. And mine is, I try to be a little bit gritty. People use language that they would probably use in business. Things happen that people will say, yeah, that happened in my company once. I can't believe you wrote that. So I try to make it edgy and realistic.
Now, of all your books, which one did you enjoy writing most?
That's a good question. Most people say which is my favorite, which is like asking me which of my children is my favorite.
Right.
I think the most recent one I enjoyed writing the most because I wrote it in the first person. I wrote it as though I were the main character, which allowed me to be more humorous and more insightful and introspective. And everyone who's read it has said it's my best book yet.
Really?
Is, every time I write a book, I think this is the one that's going to sting. But this latest one, everybody has seemed to enjoy more than any. And it's called Getting Naked, and it's about how to be a vulnerable, transparent provider of service to your client.